Hey folks, it's Abby from Abby of Pellinor, and today I'm going to be doing my March reading wrap-up. This is incredibly late. My house has been a nightmare at the moment, and we're having to clean everything, and it's just, so I hadn't had the time to film, and then on top of that, I'm filming on my phone's front camera, because my camera is underneath all of my other belongings that are not these shelves. So that's why it's late, and that's why the quality is less good than my other videos, but I just kind of wanted to, record my stats before I forget. So yes, March. I'm looking down because I have my reading journal here, and I have all of the books to my right. So I managed to read 2,189 pages this month, which I am pretty damn pleased with. I think that's quite good. And out of those pages, those were spread across 8 different books, with 1 hardback and 7 paperbacks. I read from 2 non-white authors, unfortunately only 2, which is not good enough, but I'm working on it, unfortunately. So those are, I'm just moving them all, Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe and Deserted Island Diary Volume 2 by Kokonasu Rumba. So Nigerian and Japanese authors there. And then the nationality, so Nigerian and Japanese. Then we have 2 English, Life, the Universe and Everything and Not Alone. We've got 2 American, which is The Seep and Shield Maiden. 1 Brazilian, which is Criado Perez, and 1 Irish, which is Eoin Colfer. And I read 1 book from a transgender author, only 1 unfortunately, but it was for the impromptu, spontaneous trans rights read-along, and that was The Seep by Chana, which I adored. So we'll get into the ratings in a moment. The one last thing before I do that is that I got 11 new books this month, meaning that my TBR is currently, as of the start of the month, I've read some in April. It is the 20th as I film this. I don't even want to think about when this is going up. But yeah, as of the start of April, my TBR was 174 books. So getting there. Well, getting worse. Now, let's go in chronological order of when I read them and go through the books I read this month. Okay, so first up we have Animal Crossing New Horizons Deserted Island Diaries Volume 2 Manga by Kokonasu Rumba. This is a long title. I ended up giving this 3.5 stars. I did read the first one in January. I'm checking my stats. Yes, it's the first thing I read this year. Because I was struggling to get back into reading, so just pick something very easy. This is just an adorable Animal Crossing manga. Very simple, very cute, very dumb. I gave it 3.5 stars. It's a really fun read, and I'm definitely going to continue reading along the whole manga series. It's going to be something I carry on with, but it's not, literature that I'm going to highly recommend. So yeah, a bit of fun. If you like Animal Crossing, these will be fun. If you don't already like Animal Crossing, there's no point. Then Life, the Universe and Everything by Douglas Adams, and this one I rated 3.5 stars as well. So this is out of the first 3 books of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series that I've read. It is the first one that's had any sort of proper plot. I think it helps that by this point we've had a lot more time with the characters, a lot more time for things to develop, and so the characters also feel more fleshed out, which is very helpful to the book. This series is just so dumb. It's meant to be. It is meant to be dumb. And also, Adams knew that he wasn't good at plot. Like, that was not his intention. He was intending to write something that was just character being weird. It was for radio, so it's for just listening to. So for that medium, it's fantastic. Reading it is just a little odd, but I'm also a little odd, so I'm enjoying it. This is for the Don't Forget Your Towelathon, which we were doing live streams after we finished each book, but all of us were just kind of reading things at different times. Some people were enjoying it, some people weren't, so we've instead decided to wait until we've read at least all 5 of the core books. We're still debating whether or not we're going to include the one by Eoin Colfer, and then we will review the series. 3.5, not too bad. Not Alone by Sarah K. Jackson. Oh my god, this book. So this is an ARC that I got. It is a Picador proof, but it was sent to me by the wonderful Olivia from Olivia's Catastrophe. Thank you so much. She also has a copy of this, and you really need to pick this one up. It came out at the very start of April this month as I'm filming, and this is a dystopian about an ecological disaster where basically microparticles of plastic have permeated everything. It's in the water, it's in the animals, it's in the plants, it's poisoning everybody, it's in the air, it's bad for you to breathe it in, and we're following this, I want to say young woman. If you're younger than me, you will disagree. But she's probably about my age, 26, 27, and she has a little boy, and she was going to get married to her partner before all of this kicked off. But they were separated, and it's her trying to survive, trying to keep her little boy alive, and also trying to find her fiance. It's set in the UK. It travels all the way from, I would say, Midlands. That's contentious, I know, but like north of London, all the way up to the Scotch Highlands, going through Cumbria up that western route, and I just loved it so much. It's done so well. This is like the ecological version of what I want to write for like a volcanology based disaster book. It's absolutely fantastic. It will preach at you about environmental disasters, but like if it's in the story, it like 100% like is narratively correct for that to be happening. It's done beautifully. I was sobbing by the end of it. I sent a picture to Olivia, tears streaming down my face, my nose bright red. I will not be putting that anywhere on the internet that is not just to my friends. But yeah, so this book absolutely wrecked me. It's absolutely beautiful. I don't even know how to speak about it properly. It's just done so well. The author herself is an ecologist, so she infuses the novel with all of her scientific knowledge. I do not think that this goes too scientific. This is very much accessible. There are moments where it does mention the scientific aspects and the scientific side of things, but it never really delves deep into them. It just kind of mentions them as a passing thing, which would be correct in this circumstance. It's like the same as when everything happened in 2020. Everyone learned, you know, enough to understand what was going on. Same sort of thing here. It's 5 stars. 5 stars. I reviewed this on my Instagram if you want some more of my thoughts. This is like contender for best book of the year. Like, it's on my favourites. I need to get myself a finished copy at some point. I love it. I love it so much. 5 stars. 5 stars. The Last Guardian, Artemis Fowl and The Last Guardian by Eoin Colfer. This is the final book in the Artemis Fowl series. I think it's book 8 out of all of them, which is a series that follows a young, very intelligent boy who tries to kidnap a fairy for ransom. That's in the first book. It develops way beyond this. This is a middle grade series. It's one of the very few middle grade books that I ever actually pick up and read. And I really enjoyed it. It was really fun to actually be able to finish out this series. So thank you so much, Hannah from letter M, for sending me this and let me finally finish out this childhood series of mine. I don't think I will be picking up the Fowl twins, which is the spin-off. I've not heard as many good things about them, and also with other adults that I know that have then started and picked up this book because so many of us loved it as kids, they haven't enjoyed it as much as adults. So nostalgia factor definitely here. If you read and enjoyed these as a kid, pick it up if you haven't finished it, but if you didn't, I don't think it holds up as well in today's environment from what I've heard from other people, so that's why I'm not going to pick up the Fowl twins. But I did still definitely enjoy it. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I think it tied up some loose ends that we've had from the beginning quite well, quite nicely. It does introduce the Fowl twins, so if you do choose to go on to that series, you do have them more interwoven into the book, so it feels like less of just a jump. And it was just lovely to see these characters again. It's been years since I read the 7th book in this series, and it was just so nice to get back with these folks. I only found this out today, as in I had to sit and do some research just before filming just now. I put a TikTok up about Vox by Christina Dalsha and how she is a TERF, and so that is getting removed from my TBR. And someone has commented on it and said that Caroline Criado Perez is a TERF. So I went and looked it up, and I can't find anything conclusive, but she's at least TERF adjacent. So I can no longer recommend this book. I'm going to give you my rating on it and my thoughts on it, separate from what I then learned after reading it. So it is very much focused on the gender binary, only male and female. There is nothing mentioned in this book whatsoever about transgender issues, about non-binary issues. All of it is very much male and female. That was my main complaint with this book. I ended up giving it 4.5 stars, because aside from that, I found it very informative, very interesting. The studies that were carried out and that were referenced throughout were really interesting to then go and further research. It was interesting to see things that I've experienced as a cis white woman, and try to like explain to men who've then not gotten it, kind of have backup and have data that I can point to and say, look, like here is evidence for it. It made me very, very angry in the best way, because obviously I was getting angry of the inequality, and she does cover a variety of different topics. The chapter titles are quite interesting. Can snow clearing be sexist? Yes, it was. They fixed it. Gender neutral with urinals. The Long Friday, the myth of meritocracy, the Henry Higgins effects, being worth less than a shoe. Like, the drugs don't work. It covers a lot of different things and a lot of different areas about how things are designed for men, how systems are designed for men. And yes, I did very much enjoy it. I did think it was very powerful. It did continuously make me very angry. However, it's just missing a huge part. It's missing anything and everything to do with transgender individuals. I had rated this very highly. This had been one of my favourite books of the month. It's brilliant research into only cisgender. But that then makes it bad research because it doesn't include anybody outside of that gender binary, which is ridiculous because it would enforce and solidify so many of the points that can be made. So, oh yeah, this happens to women when they're walking in the dark. You can literally ask a trans woman who has transitioned from male to female how their experience has changed. Now, yeah, sure, for physical things, like holding phones, hand size is one of the ones that she mentions. The hand size isn't going to change if it is someone who is an adult, who is transitioning in their adulthood. I don't know about kids, I don't have that medical knowledge, but if they're transitioning in their adulthood, their hands won't change size, and so that is not going to impact them. What will impact them is being acknowledged in the streets as male or female, opposite to what they had been seen as before. And that is a way to confirm that this happens. Like, people can then say the difference in going to the doctors when they were assumed to be male and then assumed to be female, and vice versa. But to counterbalance that, we have another read that I rated 4.5 stars. I'm looking at my Colfer ratings and I did rate this one higher. It almost got 5, and that is The Seep by Chana. This is the book that I read for Transgender Awareness Read Along, and this is a fantastic short novella that is sci-fi horror, apparently. I didn't find it that horrific. I'm discovering that what I've termed dark books, other people term horror. This, I don't even know how to explain it, it's so weird. So aliens come and invade the Earth, but they're nice about it and they just want to make the humans happy, but they do that by controlling their mind, and it's like everyone's high all the time. And you can choose not to be, but then you stick out from society and then you can choose to go more into it. And you don't stick out from society so much, just as you lose your humanity. And it's a discussion on that, it's a discussion on gender, on race. It goes so deep. And we follow a 50-year-old trans woman whose life is irreversibly altered after her wife then decides to be reborn as a baby. It's a beautifully written book, absolutely fantastic. I highly, highly recommend it if it sounds interesting to you at all. It was beautiful. Been on a bit of a roller coaster. We're back down, unfortunately. This one was a down of disappointment. And that is a very shiny, thank you Goldsborough for wrapping everything in plastic, Shield Maiden by Sharon Emmerichs. Ooh, orange hot chocolate, no, that's nice. Okay, so yes, this was my Goldsborough book of the month. Very pretty. It is a Beowulf retelling, and I've read one translation of Beowulf before, but I don't think you need that going in. I know that Hannah from Bookworm's Feast has also read this and not read Beowulf, so you don't need it. This was supposed to be like a really feminist retelling. And it was and it wasn't. The feminist parts are done reasonably well. The main character is fairly strong, fairly good at that. You know, there's some little nitpicks that if that was the only issue, it would have brought it down like a little bit, but not loads. But this was just really weird in that I was invested in the events, probably partially because I knew them already from having read the original, and I was invested in the characters, but at the same time the writing of both the events and the characters was awful. I really don't know how to explain it. It's really weird. Like, I was reading this quite slowly, and so the characters were sitting with me, you know, outside of me actually looking at the pages. And so I was really quite invested in them. The main character, I never remember names, main character, Freya. I was really wanting to, like, you know, root for Freya and hope that everything turns out right for her and hope that her and her friends succeed. And yet at the same time, her development was done fairly poorly, and the events that were happening were just not written in the best way. And also, there is a dragon in here, and it is teased from about page 2, and you won't see it until like here, which is just offensive. This one isn't bad. I gave it 3.5 stars. It was just disappointing because it had potential to be so much more. But yes. And then we're ending on a high note with a 4.5 star read, and that is Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. This was sent to me by Olivia Svana, Libby's Catastrophe, when she was unhauling it, and I loved it so much. So this is written by a Nigerian author. He published it first in 1958, so it is a modern classic, and this is basically the story of what was happening to tribes in Nigeria when the European colonists came, and how they ruined the culture and the tradition by slowly seeping into people's lives and people's minds, and how that ruined communities, how that ruined people, and how that destroyed heritage. A lot for a very short book. It was done beautifully, absolutely beautifully. I didn't agree with a lot of the characters' choices. They're pretty sexist. Like, pretty sexist is mild and generous. Especially the main character is incredibly, disgustingly sexist, in my Western opinion. But that is the culture, and he also is a good man aside from that. It's one of those dichotomies, and it's just seeing how the culture of these people was erased. It's just demonstrated perfectly in this book. I really highly recommend picking this up. It is very accessible. You know, it was only written in the 50s. It's not like a classic, but it will tell you a lot. It's just, yeah, I really would like to read more from Chinua Achebe at some point in the future, because I really appreciate this book and it is getting a place on my shelf with honour. And that is my journal. Those are the books that I read in March. So out of all of them, I would recommend Not Alone, The Seep, and Things Fall Apart. These are the ones that I recommend. They are all fairly different. We've got a modern classic set in, I don't actually know when. Does it tell me the date in here? Oh yes, late 1800s Nigeria. We have a future-based, I don't actually know what country it's in, I'm assuming America. A future-based America, and a slight future dystopian world has ended based UK. So a lot of different options for you if you want some recommendations from what I read in March. Let me know if you can remember. Actually, yeah. Hello, sunshine. What book can you remember that you read in March? Because then it'll either be very good, very bad, or very interesting. So, what can you remember that you read in March? Sorry that it took me so long to get this up. I'm not looking forward to having to do my April wrap up and my May TBR. I needed a nap, lads. I am reading it this month, but not as much as I'd hoped I would be. But yes, so that was my statistics for this month. Thank you so much for watching, folks. If you'd like to see some more from me, I am a little bit AWOL at the moment with the situation, but I usually post every Saturday. Give me some leniency, please. I'll be back at it sooner rather than later, I really hope, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!